Isn't Bidenomics supposed to save the world?
Let's bring in Washington Times opinion editor and Fox News contributor, Charlie Hurt. Charlie, of Biden talking about inflation, it's not even in the top 10 things you could criticize Sloppy Joe for at this point. But
exactly. No, and I also love how he now acknowledges that it's coming down after years of him refusing to even admit that inflation was a problem. And so then he, once he can talk about it, then he admits that he's been lying all along.
Yeah, and here, I want to pivot gears away from inflation and Joe Biden lying about what the Republicans want to do. They actually want to impeach him because of the fact that he probably was taking money through his son from foreign entities. But Jack Smith. Bribery. Special counsel Jack Smith, he slapped President Trump with additional counts in the classified records probe. But check this out, Charlie. Looks like perfect timing, right? Back in March, Congressman Comer revealed the vast Biden family payments. Less than 3 weeks later, Trump was indicted in Manhattan. Then, in June, Republicans got their hands on the form that allegedly revealed bribery. And 1 day later, yes, you guessed it, Trump was indicted on classified documents. And that brings us to today. So on Wednesday, Hunter's plea deal completely blows apart. And like clockwork, the next day, Donald Trump is charged with more counts from Mar-a-Lago. It seems like the FBI and the DOJ are running cover for the Bidens. Every time there's news on the Bidens, all of a sudden Donald Trump, they try to elevate into the press.
It's amazing. The timing couldn't be more perfect. It couldn't be more obvious. And I think that, to Kamala Harris's credit for acknowledging that, whatever you say about the stock market and things like that, people are still hurting.
They are hurting
at home in very serious ways. And so you have that is the reason people are discontent. And then what you have going on TV, and I think it's sort of broken through in the last week or two, is this obvious corruption within the Biden administration, obvious corruption inside DOJ and the IRS in their inability to deal with Hunter Biden, yet their insistence on going after Donald Trump, who is Joe Biden's #1 political enemy. It's so obvious you can't. It's real. I think even for Democrats who voted for Joe Biden in good faith, you can't ignore what is so obvious.
The fact that even with the Hunter Biden plea deal, that the Department of Justice and Hunter Biden's lawyers were on the same team.
Yeah.
And what we found out about that was so obvious. But just on the, people are hurting. And and she at least acknowledges it. Joe Biden's acting like, oh, I gained 50 pounds but lost 20.
Right.
And that's worth celebrating. Well, you're still 30 pounds overweight, you jackass.
Which is the whole problem with they're talking about how inflation has gone down. It's not, the inflation hasn't gone down. It just has stopped going up. It's not like prices are falling, which not that we particularly want, deflation in this country, but people are still paying way more for bread, food, gas than they were 2 years ago. And that's why it's hurt. And their salaries have not gone up with it. And that's why they're hurting. And I think it's why they're going to pay a terrible price.
And add to that, gas prices are at their highest level in the last 8 months. So people are hurting all the way around. It's a good point. And by the way, then they look at the unfairness here with the Bidens, making cash, making money off of.
And it just sort of underscores the idea that Joe Biden is in there fighting for someone. It's just not us.
Right.
He's fighting for his corrupt family and his son.
Can I just point out one thing? Even with inflation going in the right direction, it's still double the rate from when he took office. Growth in this country is a third of what it was when he came into office, and consumer prices are up 17%. And he's trying to run on that and brag about it. Stick it.
Good luck with that, Joe. Charlie, don't go anywhere. Stay right there, okay? Because one of the biggest political events of the year, it's happening tonight. 2024 Republican presidential candidates, they're flocking to Iowa for a crucial donor dinner, and the biggest frontrunners sharing the stage for the first time.
Fox correspondent Bill Malugin is in Des Moines with more.
Sean and Dagan, good evening to you. Obviously, a lot of arrows have been going back and forth between some of these GOP political candidates this cycle, but tonight, for the first time, they are all going to be in the same room together with a chance of going face-to-face with each other. So take a look. Here's what's happening. Tonight, more than a dozen of these GOP presidential candidates are going to be here in Des Moines attending the annual Lincoln Dinner. Each one of them are going to have 10 minutes to go on stage, talk to the audience, and make their pitch to voters. Now, at the same time, Vice President Kamala Harris has also been in Des Moines today, where she was meeting with activists about abortion rights and legislation. VP Harris has been criticizing the state of Florida in recent days over its new education curriculum for Black history, saying that extremists in the state are pushing the idea that slaves benefited from slavery. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is here in Iowa. He responded to VP Harris. Take a listen.
We've now seen this Kamala Harris lie exposed about Florida's high school curriculum. She tried to demagogue something that had been done by a lot of Black history scholars consistent with Florida law, saying we wanted strong standards. And so these are things that are obviously phony narratives, and we're going to fight back against that every chance we get.
But GOP presidential candidate Tim Scott, also on the campaign trail here in Iowa, rebuked Governor DeSantis and the state of Florida for those new standards, which again teach that some benefited from slavery because it taught them useful skills. Take a listen.
Slavery was really about separating families, about mutilating humans, and even raping their wives. It was just devastating. So I would hope that every person in our country, and certainly running for president, would appreciate that.
And former President Donald Trump will be attending this dinner tonight, which is expected to be a total sellout with at least 1,000 people here. Had a chance to talk to some voters who told me they are undecided going into this event, but they want to hear what these candidates have to say, and then they plan on making up their mind. We'll send it back to you.
Illusion. Thank you. So Charlie Hurt is still with us. Charlie, this is the first time we're really going to see these candidates back to back making presentations to voters. How important is that as each of the candidates are trying to break free and bust out and come close to Donald Trump?
Well, certainly on the Republican side, obviously Iowa is still the biggest game right now.
Yeah.
And I think that we were sort of convinced by a lot of the sort of, maybe not the mainstream media, but more sort of conservative media, that Ron DeSantis was going to walk away in Iowa because because of the nature of the caucuses. It's easier for sort of a nerdy guy like that to sort of interact with little groups and make his case. But obviously he's not making the case. He's failing. He's got a great record, marvelous record in Florida, but he's failing to make that case with voters in Iowa. And Trump is still sort of running away with it at the moment. In Iowa. And honestly, if this comes down to Trump winning in Iowa, I don't see how, the anti-Trump forces in the Republican Party muster an opposition to him, because, I think he's in good shape going forward. But if there was a place I would expect him to have trouble, Iowa's not a bad place to expect that.
It's just, what the heck happened to DeSantis? But we've talked about it. We talked about it yesterday. But it's the rich people looking at him, telling him how awesome he is.
Yeah.
It's just billionaires who don't know anything about politics and have no relationship with actual voters. And I look at Florida, and people can brag about how awesome Florida is doing. Well, people move there because there's no income tax. He can't lay claim to that, number one.
Right.
And wait until the housing market goes cold and see what he has to say. And there's some stuff he's done as governor that sucks to high heaven about condo rule changes that's going to blow up in his face.
So
wait, mark my words, 2 years from now.
So exactly. But even if he had a perfect record, if you're going to take your show on the road, you got to have a road show. And he doesn't have a road show. He is terrible at that small interaction with people. And obviously the campaign is worried about it because they're reshuffling everything and they're trying to scale back. But in politics, it's just what you said. Rich people are terrible at picking at political candidates, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to engage with voters, and voters have to trust you. And if you stink, you could be anything and still get elected. If you're terrible at that, you can't get elected.
But also, successful politicians in their states, that always doesn't transition to success in a presidential race. My old governor, Scott Walker, who I love as a Wisconsin governor, he was just like Ron DeSantis, elevated and had the same thing, cut staff, lost money, and Donald Trump won in 2016.
But he was kind of like Homer Simpson when he was fading into the shrub. You know, when he was on the stage.
I love my Governor Walker. Don't understand. Hold on.
I mean, he was a little like that.
Let's go to our next topic. Let's leave Governor Walker alone, because
I didn't mean that as an insult. I love Homer Simpson.
Okay. You meant it as a compliment. I love Homer Simpson.
Let's go to Elon Musk. He spoke to 2024 contender Vivek Ramaswamy on Twitter Spaces. He said he's worried about the American dream. Listen to this.
I am genuinely worried that American dream will not exist for my two sons and their generation unless we do something about it. I think for a long time we've been running from something. And the reason I entered this race, I did not expect to be running for president, but I saw a field, certainly on the Republican side, forming where I saw a lot of people who were running from something. I didn't see anybody who was running to something. And I think that's what we need to do.
Charlie, you wrote an op-ed for the Washington Times about Vivek titled, quote, "Lethargy versus Tyranny. Vivek Ramaswamy calls for a revolution." You actually compare him to something that Thomas Jefferson, one of our founding fathers, talked about. And it really resonated in terms of where he sees himself.
Yeah, you know, his argument is that, you know, that not that he wants to be less, you know, Trump without the drama or anything like that. His argument is that Trump didn't go far enough. Vivek calls himself a revolutionary. He is ready for a bloodless revolution in this country in order to make our federal government answerable to people. And when you can elect all these people and it seems like nothing ever changes. That's a real problem. If you elect people to change government and they can't, either they don't want to, they get bought off on the way to changing it, or it's impossible to change government, you have a problem. And Vivek Ramaswamy, who is the opposite of DeSantis in his ability to connect with people, and he's also such an amazing communicator. His argument is, look, we need to revolutionize the federal government, and he's making and he can get into the weeds, like he can blow your doors off when he gets into the weeds about this stuff. But he loses me in like 5 minutes. It's above my pay grade. But he's also very engaging with voters. I think that whatever happens this time, that guy's not going away.
Bold ideas and a vision for the country.
Yep.
Voters love it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he's doing.
And he's not making that up. He has he talks about a positive vision, and that is that wins every time.
Before you go,